Dystopian Japan, where all the citizens' brains are monitored and tracked by the government. Will the people be set free of this tyranny? Let's find out, as today on Anime Recaps, we'll be covering the first 4 episodes of the series, Psycho-Pass. At the start of the episode, Shinya Kagome, a latent criminal, battles a helmeted opponent in the upper story of a dark tower. The opponent crashes out of the window when Kagome shoots him. We're then introduced to Shogo Makishima, a tall, lean guy who congratulates Kagome for his victory, despite the wounds. The scene then jumps to a girl named Akane Tsunemori, running towards the Public Safety Bureau in the pouring rain. It's Akane's first day at her police job, and she electronically identifies herself as an inspector, hurrying inside the Crime Investigation Department to meet her division supervisor, Inspector Nobachika Ginoza. Ginoza informs Akane that they're short-staffed, so he cannot treat her like a newbie. He then briefs her first mission, to hunt down a man named Nobuo Okura, who has run away without undergoing therapy for his high Psycho-Pass reading. Psycho-Pass is a scanner-like instrument that scans the crime coefficient of a person. If the reading exceeds 100 crime coefficient, then that person must be held by the police. Okura, a latent criminal possibly using incompatible drugs, has abducted a passerby and held her hostage. While Ginoza urges Akane to prepare for the mission, a police van appears in front of them. He reveals that the people inside aren't human since their Psycho-Pass readings exceed the accepted societal limit. They are enforcers, who will be Akane's subordinates. These enforcers are also latent criminals, but are used by the police as hunting dogs, thanks to their extraordinary skills at capturing other criminals. Ginoza introduces Akane as their second owner to the enforcers, and splits them into 2 teams. Akane is assigned with 2 enforcers, Shinya Kogami and Tomomi Masoka. The 3 arm themselves with Dominators, a type of gun that reads the Psycho-Pass of the target one is aiming at. Masoka explains the working of the gun, and they leave together. In the following scene, the target, Okura, sits with his hostage, Chika Shimatsu, in an abandoned place. He complains that his high crime coefficient doesn't allow him to have an everyday life, so he'll do whatever he wants. He threatens to kill anybody he dislikes. A horrified Shimatsu shivers with fear, but Okura tortures her further. Meanwhile, Akane follows Masoka through the abolitionist area's alleys, where Tokyo's homeless population lives. During their hunt for the criminal, Akane points her gun at Masoka to see how the Psycho-Pass reading operates. The scanner in the gun shows Masoka's crime coefficient as over 120, which means he is a latent criminal. Akane is shocked to learn this as he appears pretty normal. Masoka tells her that everything she has learned at training school is just theory-based, and instead warns her to be prepared for the actual case. While they're talking, one of the subordinates, Kagari, interrupts, revealing he's found the suspect in the KT building and asks Ginoza to take a shot at the target. After Ginoza approves, he shoots Okura in the back with the Dominator in paralyzer mode. To everyone's surprise, the paralyzer doesn't work on Okura, and Kagari guesses he's on drugs. This allows Okura to escape through the window along with his hostage. As Masoka and Akane make their way through the elevator, they spot Okura and corner him. Since Okura has a woman as his hostage, he demands they drop their guns. Masoka abides by his orders, pushing his gun towards Okura. But when Okura tries to fire, the gun becomes ineffective. Just then, Kogami appears and shoots Okura in lethal eliminator mode, causing him to explode. Following the gruesome death, the hostage, Shimatsu, cannot stop screaming horrifically. Akane goes to calm her down, but Masoka points his Dominator at the hostage. Since the hostage's crime coefficient can be influenced by their kidnappers, Shimatsu's crime coefficient displays over 100. She screams and falls down the stairs as Akane tries to stop Masoka. Meanwhile, Kogami follows the hostage and points his Dominator in lethal eliminator mode. Akane instructs him to spare the hostage as she's just a victim of crime, not a criminal. Since Kogami seems determined, Akane shoots him in paralyzer mode, preventing the hostage's death. Unfortunately, Ginoza shows up from behind and paralyzes the hostage. He then orders Akane to write a report on her handling of the mission. Kogami remains hospitalized, and the extent of his paralyzer damage is unclear. Meanwhile, Akane still reels over shooting Kogami, as her virtual jellyfish assistant greets her for the morning. The assistant briefs her schedule for the second day at the Public Safety Bureau. Frustrated by her actions on her first day at work, Akane reluctantly gets out of bed to prepare for work. She goes to take a shower, while ordering her virtual assistant to prepare breakfast, Chinese style. After showering, Akane has breakfast in her residence while the jellyfish comments about her needing to take supplements for mental contamination. The anime gradually introduces the viewers to a world of technology, seen in the amenities of Akane's apartment, and the fact that she can change between outfits virtually. Akane leaves the apartment while her assistant wishes her a good day. Next, Akane shares with her two friends about her first day at the bureau. She constantly self-deprecates her actions, but one of her friends reminds her that she did not do anything that violates the standard protocol, so she shouldn't worry. Another friend points out Akane's clear psychopath reading despite her distressed mood. Dismissing their opinions, Akane wonders if joining the Public Safety Bureau was a mistake. Her friends immediately jump in to cheer her up, proving that Akane was at the top of her class. Later, Akane shows up for her afternoon work shift after changing into her work dress. We're then introduced to crime lab analyst Shion Kagaramori, who realizes Akane is the one who shot Kagome with the paralyzer. Akane asks her about Kogami's health. While searching for Kogami's data, Shion reveals that she's also a latent criminal, bound to work for the Bureau like other enforcers. She mockingly asks Akane to reform the system once she becomes a high-ranking official. When Akane insists on reporting on Kogami's health, Shion reveals that he was hit directly on his spinal cord and needs a little more rest. Shion softens up after seeing Akane's distress over causing him harm and directs her to come back the following morning so that she can talk to Kogami. Next, Akane gets on to her day at work, attempting to fill out a report from the night before and self-evaluate her actions on record. Enforcer Masoka walks in to brief her for the day as she interacts with fellow workers regarding the broken tablet. An emergency alarm alerts everyone that there has been a break-in, and Masoka asks Akane to assist him in the investigation. They head to a mall to find the perpetrator raising the area's overall stress level. As they disguise themselves in holosuits, Masoka spots a guy hiding behind a column. The two then approach him, only to discover that he is a latent criminal. The guy is then taken into custody. Later that evening, Kagari joins Akane while having her dinner. He's curious to find out why Akane took such a risky job. Akane notes that he thinks she's not fit for the job. She reveals she had gotten a top ranking in all 13 ministries and 6 companies, but she decided to choose the Public Safety Bureau as she thought she was meant for the role of inspector and that she might be able to understand what her purpose in the universe is. But Kagari believes that the system pegs most people and they get into jobs it puts them into. He goes on to reveal that he was considered a risk and a potential criminal at age 5. Bummed out and schooled by Kagari, Akane finally visits Kogami, who is still stuck in the hospital as the Dominator's paralyzing effects are still not wearing off. She apologizes for his condition, but Kogami flips her expectation of their reunion as he suggests that she did the right thing instead. Kogami applauds her for choosing justice before duty and being an accountable detective. Akane finally thanks her colleague and leaves the place to submit her report to Ganoza. In the following scene, Kagome works out in his basement before pouring some water on himself. He lights a cigarette while perusing through his vision board. The show then jumps to Ganoza as he briefs another mission to Akane. They drive up to investigate the case of Daisuke Shioma, a worker of the Hachioji drone factory that died while servicing a drone. Upon arrival at the factory, manager Kuraudo Goda shows them around the building. He reveals that the factory is totally offline, disconnected not just from the internet, but even Ethernet for fear of hacking. He then shows the inspectors and enforcers the footage of the dead man, who seemed alive when the drone ripped him piece by piece. The manager swears that dismembering is an accident and provides Ginoza file assessments and periodic checkups to further claim his statement of safety protocols in the factory. Meanwhile, Kagari and Masoka explain to Akane that the factory is under the direct control of the Ministry of Economy, so it can take much time to shut down the factory and conduct thorough Dominator checks. This would affect production, which the ministry wouldn't want. So it's easier to overlook worker deaths and hide them as unavoidable industry accidents. Despite all the evidence of security checkups, Kagari and Masoka, just like Ginoza, think this is a murder case. But without connection to the internet and their system, the enforcers and inspectors have no way of identifying the killer. While eating lunch at the factory canteen, Kagari, Akane, and Kogami notice a plant worker, Yuji Kanehara, being bullied by the others. Akane asks the factory manager about the incident, but he dismisses it as playful teasing. While in a meeting, Ginoza stresses that the team needs objective evidence to go after the investigation. Masoka points to the psychopath scan evidence, which shows Kanehara switching shifts due to his mental cloudiness and improvements after accidents, theorizing that he is taking his murderous revenge on the bullies. To test this theory, Akane and the enforcers prepare for their plan, which is to lay a trap to get Kanehara into an area with temporary communication access. Akane assists Kogami in reaching Kanehara, who is eating his meal in a bathroom stall. Kagome plays tough to push the man to his brink. He teases out how Kanehara really reacts to resentment and violence. He then calls out Kanehara a serial murderer with a cloudy psychopath. It turns out that Kagome's trigger plan worked right on course, and we can see Kanehara trying to attack Kagome and Akane with his drone. He chases the two throughout the building, but fortunately, other enforcers arrive for backup. Kogami receives a dominator through his friend's help, paralyzes Kahara, and destroys the murderous drones just in time. In the next scene, Akane speaks with a talisman in a virtual world. She asks ambiguously if she can trust a colleague, referring to Kogami, as his behavior is pretty erratic at times, yet other times makes a lot of sense. The talisman tells her to look past her assumptions and accept her friend's true character, if she wants an honest answer. The show then skips to Tomomi Masoka painting tulips with Akane watching him. She complains that she can't understand Kogami, to which Masoka advises her to see things the way Kogami does and think as he does. Their conversation is interrupted by a call from Ginoza, and Akane leaves for work. At their unit, Ginoza briefs a case that involves a man named Kimihiko Hayama, who has been missing for the last 2 weeks. They utilize a holo to look through Hayama's apartment as it was 2 weeks earlier. The team discovers that the sofa has been rearranged, and when they move it, they find a scratch on the floor and adhesive tape remains. Kagome theorizes that the victim might have been attacked, dismembered, and flushed down the toilet, explaining the clogging of the sewers. Meanwhile, Kagari hacks into Hayama's computer and learns that the victim was a famous avatar, Talisman, a fact that surprises Akane, who reveals that she talked with the avatar for the first time just that morning. The team then reports to the crime lab drones to analyze the situation. Shion Karanamori informs that her drones have found Hayama's dismembered body in the sewer pipes, but points out that his avatar, Talisman, is still operating online. Ginoza then proposes they contact Talisman directly by going online as avatars. In Hayama's virtual world, Commufield, Ginoza and Akane enter as different avatars to learn about the Talisman using Hayama's online identity. They spot the Talisman, who leaves his own commu field to enter another avatar's field, Spooky Boogie. The inspectors follow Spooky Boogie and wonder if the avatars have any connection to each other. Then Akane disappears and finds herself in Spooky Boogie's private chat room. Spooky Boogie wonders what Akane is doing in her commu field. Akane then asks her about the Talisman. Spooky Boogie reveals that Talisman's behavior was erratic 2 months ago, but he did bounce back to his mellow and cheerful self. Akane says she thinks Talisman's operator is a poser, and Spooky Boogie decides to help with the investigation as an old school friend of Akane. Spooky Boogie returns to her forum and invites everyone to attend a real-life cosplay event at Club Exoset, where she and Talisman will compete for the top spot. Back in real life, Akane reports to Ginoza about the event and says that the participants remain anonymous due to their holo cosplay. At the club, the detectives are set to look out for the Talisman, hoping to expose his real identity. Meanwhile, the club owner calls a man named Mr. Mido to confirm the presence of a dominator. Mr. Mido realizes it was all a trap by Spooky Boogie and warns the club owner to escape immediately. Akane enters the club in her cosplay avatar, but shrill noise blares simultaneously, causing all the participants to be decked out as Talisman. Masoka orders the team to use their dominators to check crime coefficients, and as they do so, many participants are identified and subdued, but others flee. Next, an angry mob gathers in Spooky Boogie's commune field, accusing her of the raid at the party. Suddenly, Talisman appears among the crowd and blames her for the incident. Furious at the Talisman, she logs out, and we see her in human form for the first time. She cusses the Talisman, but before she can block his access online, a spectacled man appears from behind. He strangles her to death and prepares to cut her up and decompose her body, revealing himself to be Hayama's murderer. Outside the room, the club owner and his accomplices await while Mido informs them that he will take over Spooky Boogie's avatar.